Usually we go live on Wednesday, but today it's a Monday, and we're very lucky to have with us four amazing women who have done amazing things in their various fields. Of course, I'll give them a quick introduction, but I'm going to actually ask each of them to introduce themselves and really let them speak about themselves from the heart and understand what is going on in their world. So in no particular order, we've got to, I'll introduce Anjali Shaman. Sharma, thank you for joining us. That's Anjali. She's the founder of Narrative, the business of stories. She'll be speaking about what she does in terms of narrative and telling people how to tell stories, and we'll learn a lot about that. And Kaumudi, yes, there she is smiling away. Kaumudi Goda, she's also the Chief Operating Officer of Mentor-Mentee training, and we'll hear from her in a short while. And Maylin Wong, thank you for joining us. You've also got some Malaysian roots, I believe, and you could tell us a little bit about that. She's the Managing Director of DigiB, and I'm excited to hear what you've got to say about what's going on in that area of industry and what women are achieving there. And I have a special thank you to Sheila Berman. Thank you, Sheila, for everything you've done behind the scenes in getting today's session together. It's really wonderful to have someone like you help out, and it just goes to show you need someone who knows what they're doing, and it's always good to have a woman who knows what they're doing, who's able to put together today. So without Sheila, I think today wouldn't be possible. So thank you very much, Sheila. And she's actually the global marketing lead of She Loves Data. And I actually love data as well. So I'm the He Loves Data. What you're going to teach us in terms of what's going on in the world of data and the world of women in data. So I want to start with Anjali. Anjali, if you could tell us a little bit about what you do. Everyone just have a few minutes just to let us understand where you're coming from, and if you could get the ball rolling with what is important about stories.
Yeah, well, happy International Women's Day, everybody. But let's just make sure we don't stop at the greetings today and we choose to challenge something. So as Nordin mentioned, I'm the founder of Narrative, the Business of Stories. And on a day-to-day basis, I choose to challenge the way organizations communicate. And when I challenge, then I obviously help them make the change happen. So what does that mean? What that means is that if you are a company who's announced that we are going to have an artificial intelligence-led project wherein everybody in the company has to be involved in it, what's the story you're going to tell so that that project really comes to life? That's the work I do. If you're a factory and you want the gender diversity in the factory to go up, no number of reasons are going to help you do that, and no amount of propaganda is going to help you do that. What you really need is to find out where exactly things are breaking down, and stories help you do that. So that's the kind of work that I do. At a personal level, I love to run, write, and read. I'm currently running 100K for IWD this month. A little bit more about that later if the opportunity comes on. And I'm a mother of a 13-year-old and 2 rescue dogs, one of which actually comes from Malaysia. Very happy to be here and hope to add value.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that. And you're going to have to tell us a little bit more about the dogs and a little bit about your daughter as well. We're looking forward to hearing more about how important narrative is for women and what are the words that we should be using. Now, Kaumudi, tell us a little bit about yourself as we shift over to you. What are some of the things you're seeing in the field of training and development for women, and how has that changed in recent years?
Thank you, Nordin, for having me. A big warm welcome to all the audience. I see the chat box is already blowing up. I'm so excited to be on this panel today with Nordin. I'm Kaumudi Goda, I also go by KG. I'm a lawyer by training and an Indian national. I have since lived in the US, lived in many different countries, and worked with organizations across the world. Some point in the last 5, 6 years, I came to the realization that simply working hard and caring a lot about my work is not enough. There were enough barriers that I was noticing in the intersectionality. I'm female, I'm Asian descent. There were challenges I was facing, and I wanted to speak to the truth of what I was experiencing of the world, and was hoping that in doing so, it helps others as well. That's how I decided to align what I do professionally with causes I cared about. I previously used to always volunteer, Nordin, in various things, low key, right? My work was work. As a professional, is 100% neutral. And then I had causes I cared about, like women empowerment, diversity, inclusion. I did that low key. I aligned it up. And now I spend a lot of time advising organizations, multinational organizations, enterprises, individual executives on how to have an inclusive leadership lens in everything they do, the systems and processes they design, the decisions they make, and the way they show up in the world with their colleagues, with their teammates, professionally, personally, everywhere. And so for IWD, what I'd love for all of you to think about is having a more open heart and mind today, and consider how you can be a more critical thinker and a more inclusive human being. Back to you, Nordin.
Thank you, KG, and thank you. I see you've got the whiteboard there, so are you going to be using that later? You're going to help us work through some of the issues. I certainly hope so. Now, Maylin, you are in a very male-dominated part of industry, but you are now leading your own organization. And could you tell us a little bit about what it means to be in charge of an innovation hub for a global chemical distribution company? I mean, this looks like a lot of work and a lot of stress. What goes on in your day-to-day life?
Good afternoon, Nordin, and yes, thank you for the introduction. Now, I have to say, while listening to my previous two co-stars in this show, can I say, I felt an overwhelming sense of awe for you ladies. I mean, the work that you guys are doing and actively, trying to get women out there, whether it's your storytelling or whether in your little work. Thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. So back to myself, my name, as Nordin said, is Maylin. I have spent a large part of my childhood in Malaysia before my mother, another really strong woman, I would say, insisted that her daughters actually get education. And so at a point she felt that, she would send us overseas to get our education. And that's how I ended up in Australia before coming back to this part of the Asia to contribute to society here. So before I go any further about myself, I want to shout out to my mother, and thank you very much for her contribution to my life as a really strong woman out there. I hope this podcast is dedicated to her. I would love to. Where I am today is really about her being a very strong woman in my life. So back to myself and work. So yes, I am not in a traditional industry of such where most women are. It has been, as Nordin says, challenging. But it has been really a fun ride in terms of, representing women that we can do well in a traditionally male-dominated world. For me, what we do here as a team is we try and help transform the chemical distribution industry by way of digitizing, digitalization, all the buzzword that you can think of in this day and age. And at the last 1 year, because of COVID, we have definitely leapfrogged. And I wouldn't say it's stressful. Stress comes in many forms. If you enjoy it, you kind of, manage that stress level, and it's still very fun. So I look forward to sharing more and hopefully learning from the other ladies on this forum as well. Back to you, Nordin.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Maylin. And really, I can see a lot of questions coming in, so I hope you're all ready to answer some of those questions. But before we get to some of those questions, Sheila, Tell us about what you do with data, and why is that important for women in this day and age, and also in a sense, like for us poor men who are trying to understand what's going on.
Thank you, Nordin, and happy International Women's Day, everyone. I can see all of these questions in the chat box, and hopefully we'll be able to answer those. But briefly, before I answer the question, I'd like to give a brief background about myself. I was born in the Philippines, but I've moved around. So Singapore is actually my fourth country. I've lived in Australia, so I'm an Australian citizen, and then from Australia lived in the United States. What I have found in all of those moves is that you really need to start understanding the environment where you are in. Considering that I come from a country, part of the world where you don't really speak up, and I consider myself a high-functioning introvert, it was a bit of a learning curve for me to be able to interact with my colleagues in Australia. And then when I have to move again to the United States and have to start understanding, okay, this is a different set of people again, I need to again look at how do I become part of the environment, and how do I come up with ways in order to be able to understand and work with them. And same thing when I moved to Singapore. And in all of that, from my various conversations and observations with people in all these different countries, I found that a lot of them, mostly women, trailing spouses, as you call them, they have this I would say, disadvantage of, for them, it's hard for them to communicate and build their community. And so what happens is that they go into this depression. A lot of them get depressed because they can't do anything. And so what I realized is that you need to build your network, but how to build that network, they require steps and they require your passion. So in the world of data, and she loves data, what I'm doing, since I'm leading the marketing initiatives there, what we're trying to do is to encourage everybody, women all over the world, for them to understand that there are a lot of things are happening in technology right now. And for some people, when you say technology, they're talking about artificial intelligence. And yet what we found in, say, I think it was in Cambodia, where the team went there to conduct a training, and we have women there who don't even know how to use Excel. So there's this disparity in terms of experience and skill. And what we're trying to get people to understand is no matter where you are at, you can be part of this technological evolution. But I'm happy to discuss that as we go along. Back to you, Nordin.
And I can see a lot of questions coming in, and I really want to help us understand where we are and where we need to go. And this is kind of one of the things that we talk about is how do we design a positive future? And part of that is understanding where we are now and understanding the kind of history of the problems, but also what are the opportunities as we move forward. So I can see a bunch of questions here, and I'm going to throw it open, but I'm going to ask Anjali to really start us on, because I like this term of narrative. I like stories. What stories have we been telling ourselves? And have we come to believe them? And should we believe some of these stories? And one of the questions, Shaya Salam, thank you for the question. How can someone step forward when people tell us, and really tell us means it's a story, right? That our idea wouldn't work and that we're not suited for our position in our organization. What stories do you tell women, and how do we get to the point where the organization understands that story and moves forward?
Yeah, so look, it'll be very easy for me to sort of swing around and say, believe in yourself. I mean, if believing in yourself was so easy, then we'll all believe in ourselves right from the default. But the truth is this: what I have noticed in organizations that I work with, that there's always something that pads the woman's confidence, right? So let me give you an example. There's a lady that I'm working with right now, and she's currently at a position where she can tell her amazing story of a successful woman in STEM. But when she breaks her story down, there is always the story started with someone from the organization giving her the opportunity, not just the opportunity, but also guidance and mentoring to succeed in that opportunity. So if you happen to fall into a situation where someone says your idea won't work, firstly, nod your head and say 50-50. May work, may not work. And then go, it's never like my idea would work. It's never 100% confirmation. Then try and understand where exactly is this question coming from. Is this coming from a sense of insecurity, or is this coming from this whole mindset that it's always been done like this in this organization? And I think the third thing that you have to do is to go and actually find an ally in the organization, right? An ally can be a really senior woman or a male ally, because they help you see things that you would not see for yourself. Let me give you an example. Adam asked a really good question about compensation. So I have been in a situation when I worked in Australia where my compensation was way less than the compensation of the male counterpart, but I didn't see that as a problem. Some male ally had to show me that as a problem. So go and run your idea with either a senior female ally or a male ally member, and then use a story to be able to prove your point that this idea would work. What is a story? A story is citing another example where an idea like that has worked wonderfully. In short, that is called doing your homework and using factual stories to make your point. So, for example, someone says this strategy is not going to work. You are presenting the strategy. It's an entrenched view. You have to find an anti-story that will work against the story that person is telling. So first, get your confidence in being able to tell that by actually forming an ally, then cite real examples, real stories where your idea has worked in a different setting. Then you're fighting with the fact. You are positioning yourself with a factual narration. You're not just saying, it's my idea, please take it. When you use stories as a solution, with confidence of the padding that others give you, you go great places.
Now, I've noticed there's a few men have joined our session today. James, Adam, and thank you for joining. Now, Maylene, there was a question earlier about managing men, women managing men. Now, as an MD, you would of course have to manage men, and you're smiling and nodding. You look like my wife, who smiles and nods sometimes when she manages me. But what are your experiences in terms of getting it right in that dynamic, which is kind of the flip side?
That's I'm nodding and smiling, and I'm not entirely sure where that question is, because I couldn't see it. But I'd like to address it to kind of turn it around to say that I don't actively manage men, so to speak, right? It's not a conscious thing where you say, oh, because I'm a woman, I have to manage my male counterpart this way. I want to kind of bring back what Anjali was saying earlier on about finding your ally in the business. The reason why I want to go back to that is, as Anjali was talking, I was also reflecting from a career perspective that I did not actively look up for an ally, but I recognize that I have allies in the business, whether they're males or females. So that is actually as important as looking for the allies. I think for us women, a lot of the times you pigeonhole yourself and you kind of tell yourself that I'm a woman, therefore, you have a subconscious bias in yourself. It's not just in your male counterpart, right? So recognizing the fact that you do have allies is actually very important as well. And coming back to, I guess, I put an air quote on managing men, is you will find that you're not managing someone as a male or female. They are, at the end of the day, human beings, right? Doesn't matter whether you're male or female. You don't manage them. If you put yourself in an equal footing from the fact that they are just another human being, in essence, you're also managing them. And so you don't put yourself in a lesser position or even in a further position, but you base it on your ability. And I was saying a long story, I guess that's how you manage people in general. You treat people as people, whether they're male or female. I hope that helps to somebody who actually asked that question.
Sure. I think so. And I think this is where, if we're moving towards this idea of it's not an us or them situation, or it's a me or him, or, and I think this is where, because I see a lot of, especially a couple of questions around people going first into the job market and equal opportunity and these kind of things. Now, Sheila, what kind of data have you been able to find that has really shown the growth of women, especially maybe during COVID-19? I mean, for me, I always think of COVID-19 as something that's actually been wonderful for developing the cause of women. But I'm open to correction. Let me know what the data says.
I don't really have the actual data at hand, but there has been multiple articles as well as findings globally to show that the segment in society who was most impacted are women. Now, unfortunately, most of this data is based in the United States because they're the ones who are conducting a lot of research. And what they have shown is that, I believe, don't quote me on this because I might be wrong, but we do know that a high percentage of it are women who actually lost their jobs, either because they have to go home and take care of their family. They are the main caregiver of their family. They're the ones who are doing hourly work, which means that they have to make the sacrifice. Now here, I guess in Singapore, we don't really have a comprehensive data to actually show what is happening in the different parts of the region. Although anecdotally, what we have seen is that it's still usually the woman who becomes the main caregiver in the family. So if anything happens, they're the ones who have to go out. If their husband or their partner loses their job, it's the women who really has to think of ways to go, what am I going to do now? How am I going to feed my family? And what they're doing is they come up what we call the gigs, but the gigs are the ones that actually got depleted during the pandemic. And that is why there's what we've seen in Sheila's data in particular is that many now are shifting towards how do I change career? How do I now upskill myself? We have members and followers, for example, who used to be in finance. Now they said they got retrenched and now they're starting to think, how can I make myself valuable in the company? And since we've opened all of our trainings, not just to women, we've started opening our training, for example, the Dashboard Specialist Program, which is on data visualization. We've seen both men and women coming into our training and learning because everybody now is understanding that, like you said, it's not an us versus them, but it's a matter of who is the most impacted. And what we're seeing, it's the women. So now we're going towards training them to say, okay, this is a valuable skill. Everybody's talking about data. Everybody's talking about technology. We're offering these trainings to you for free. Mm-hmm. Partner with organizations like TIBCO, for example, who's providing the software for that. We're partnering with Tableau. We're partnering with Informatica. So we're partnering with all these organizations because these organizations themselves recognize that in order for them to have skilled people in their organization, they need to be trained. And if they can't do that, then they have to partner with organizations like us, for example, who is willing to do the work of setting up the webinar, partnering and organizing, and then having them provide the technology behind it.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Thank you, Sheila. Now, KJ, you've been hiding in the corner there. You haven't we haven't forgotten you. But one of the things that I've been fortunate enough in my life is to have strong women around me. Of course, my mom has played a huge role, and of course my wife keeps me on the straight and narrow, and thankfully I've got two amazing daughters who have done amazing things in their field. So what role do you see families playing in terms of developing women in a way that is they become leaders in their own right, and it doesn't necessarily have to be they are the women prime minister or this, but they're leaders in their area. What do you see happen recently?
Thank you, Nordin, for that question. I want to acknowledge the fact that people like you hosting conversations like this and audience members who are male who tuned in today play a very important role. When we think about gender and diversity, we need to understand that it's a wicked problem There's so many ways in which this is impacted that you cannot take a shortcut, a black and white view and say, I'll tweak this, it'll solve the problem. Because if you tweak this, something else will go wrong. If you do that, something else will go wrong. Let's understand that to begin with. Research tells us, Nordin, that up to about age of 5, all children are alike. When you say, can you fly? Most 4 or 5-year-olds will say, yes. Can you go to Mars? Yes. About age 8, you start seeing a difference. You'll start seeing girls say things like, I can't play sports, I'm not good at it, I'm weak in math. You'll start seeing girls put their hands up less. So by the age of 8, boys and girls start absorbing from the environment, from the bedtime stories they hear, the movies they watch, the news blaring from the TVs at home, the video games they play, things they hear in school. They absorb messages, and it's a very toxic world out there with so many biased messages that come at both girls and boys, right? As much as girls hear awful messages that we don't want them to hear about how only golden haired princesses who are gorgeous win that prince and their life goal should be getting married to that prince. The boys also hear bad messages, toxic masculinity. Girls cry, boys don't cry, don't be a pussy, be good at sport, be a man. So these messages are hitting our children so early on. So as a father, when you think about sending your girls out there in the world, that's one of the things you'll have to be very alert about. Combat the messages they're receiving, understand what they're hearing. Our children sound smart, but they're still young, and their ability to understand the difference between fact and nonsense is still low. So we can correct it. I'll give you an example. A 10-year-old boy, as much as I'm a fierce feminist and I raise my boys to be feminist, they pointed something out. They're playing Minecraft, which is a video game for younger children. In Minecraft, when you create your profile, if you identify yourself as male, you're automatically auto-allocated a profile with muscles, thick, bulky avatar. And if you identify as female, you're given a more svelte form with slim arms. What messages are those sending? So if you were a kid and you wanted to win a game, and you're given the message, because you're female, you're automatically going to get a weaker avatar that looks visibly weaker. What message is the child absorbing deep inside? So that's something that definitely we should pay attention to. Another one I want to acknowledge is that really all human beings, to Malin's point, we're like tea bags, right? Think of yourself as a jasmine tea bag. No matter how much you are being really careful and authentic in how you turn up, if you're sitting next to harsh chemicals, smell of garlic, smell of detergent, smell of floor cleaner, smell of acid, you're going to absorb it. We all live in a world with all of these messages coming at us at all times. You cannot exist in vacuum. So you need to be mindful, both men and women, so that we can combat it, be more mindful. That's what I would tell you when we think about what roles can families play. Combat these messages, and make sure we all mindfully practice better ways of being, more human rather than male or female.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Usually, I mean, this is usually a working lunch with Nordin, and we usually have lots of food on the table. So I like your analogy of the jasmine tea. And I'm sure there'll be a bunch of people rushing out there to buy some tea after this. Now, Maylin, KG also mentioned toxic chemicals, and you deal with chemicals on a day-to-day basis. But what kind of toxic behavior have you seen in your career, and has it gotten better? This is kind of the thing that I wanted to start with you, Maylin, but I want to ask everyone: has it gotten better in the last 6 months or last 6 years, or has it stayed the same? What is your observation?
So my answer is a little bit controversial because in some ways I don't allow it myself. So this is, I guess, a message as well, back to Anjali's point, that it's easy for us to say believe in yourself, and how do you do it in that essence, right? But if looking back through my entire career, I am very conscious and very aware of the surroundings of, again, you know, the men and the women out there. But for me, when you ask me this question, has it gotten better? Has it gotten worse to the degree for me personally? The fact that I actually don't allow it myself, it just means that I don't absorb it as much, you know, and I do not let it happen. And I don't know if you guys, you know, are aware of Deepak Chopra in a way, but I firmly believe in what you put out there in the universe is also what you get there, what you get out of it. And also, I also firmly believe in how you want people to treat you is how you train them to treat you as well. So if you do not allow it, in my case, where you know, I don't view it as though any of my male colleagues or anybody who could be unfair or that an environment is unfair, I don't address it as such, if that makes sense. As I said, it is a little bit controversial in a way. It just stems from myself that I do not recognize that, you know, because that's what allows me to work in male-dominated industry where, again, for me, it goes back to just knowing who you are, embracing yourself and delivering first up instead of worrying about the males and the females and looking at it from that perspective. Now, you know, some examples, you know, people spoken about, you know, the inequality in pay, for instance. If I walk up to my boss and I do really feel that I'm not paid enough for what I do, it's not because I'm a female or a male, but I address it from the angle that this is what I do. This is what's in the market. It does not matter whether I am male or female, red, green, or blue, right? Do I see that there's any change in the last 6 months or 12 months in terms of how I have personally been treated or how the industry has been? Again, I actually am very aware of what's happening, but I'm also very aware of the position that I've been where I've had many male colleagues and bosses who are you know, very supportive of what I do, and you get the promotions that you what's the word that you are capable of doing, and whether it's in this industry that I've been, or in another alcohol distribution industry of which I was in before, or in a tech industry, I just don't see it that way, and I don't allow it to be treated that way. I hope that makes, you know, gives people a bit more, I guess, you know, a way of how I deal, if you like, with inequality, or in my view, no inequality. Hope that makes sense, Nordin. We can't hear you.
Oh, okay, there we go. Yeah. Jiyoung is behind the scenes controlling everything I say. I think it's a question of control for you, and you take that control, which I think is a very positive approach. Now, Anjali, what do you see in this sense?
Yeah. So firstly, I want to say when KG was talking about the children and how the family impacts them, I'm suddenly reminded of the story this woman told, that if any one of you has watched the movie E.T., there was this little girl who started crying after the movie was over, even though E.T. was saved, because she said, why is it that out of all the groups of the children, only the boys saved E.T.? You know, the girl was left behind. So the bias truly exists. And, you know, I'll kind of from there move into what Milene said about just not giving the consent to be treated in a certain way. But I think the consent comes at a certain level of confidence, right? You get to a certain stage in your career where the confidence just oozes out of you. You walk into a room, you command authority, the way you articulate your words, tell people you're a credible individual. What happens before that, okay? What happens before that? So before that, I think the couple of things that I have learned are really about two things in terms of being able to get to a place where that toxicity doesn't come to you. The first thing that I have learned from was, you know, when I decided to leave my corporate life and get into my own sort of work, I partnered with someone who's internationally based, and we had this really large project, and the key client was based out of Singapore. And this particular person who I partnered with was actually leading that project and said to me, would you please go and see the client and explain the services that we have? And I very happily, thrilled and excited about this new partnership I was in, and it's going to change the course of my entire career. Went and met up with the client, and I think did a reasonably good job of being able to sell the services. We got the project, and then in a month or two, I was out of the project because the project was taken. I came back home and I spoke to my mentor. So everyone, I say mentor, ally all the time, because I think a lot of the pitfalls of ignorance, things we don't see, have been shown to me by someone else, a male ally. So someone said to me, why are you being the Bollywood item number? So if any one of you who watches Bollywood movie, there is a term called item number. The girl who just comes and sings and dances and actually, does all the fluffy stuff, but the actual work is not done by her. Like the strategy, the vision, the project running is not done by her. And that stuck in my head. I actually think that a lot of the times I would do the item girl work of showing up and being the flower, but when it came to the actual work, it was taken away from me, or it was not something that I would be a part of. So I wrote that as a mantra for myself: never be an item girl for any project. That then leads to another thing that I've learned from being in a place where toxicity comes. So I learned to say, am I in this project, or am I just fronting this project so that the project comes in and then you run with it? I said no to BD roles unless I was going to run the strategy as well. The second thing I learned was that we women are sometimes responsible for that toxicity. The reason for that is we do not keep the contribution at a cerebral level, right? We will project, we will try to sort of kind of go towards, focus more on things like look good, present well, speak nice. Let's keep, I'm not going to call it a fight, but let's keep the contribution at a cerebral level. Also learn how to be strategic. Also talk finance. Also talk analytics. Don't just be, you've done an amazing project. You want to post a picture about that on social media. Talk about the strategic contribution you had towards that picture, that project, not just a pretty picture of you. I think for as long as we position ourselves not at a cerebral level, we will continue to get that toxicity. So in summary, what did I just say? What I said was, the goal is to get to the level of confidence where you'd give nobody the consent. How does that come to you? You have to be aware of the pitfalls of ignorance. Don't be an item girl, and always try to contribute at a cerebral level. Don't just feel comfortable with being the flower on the wall. And I think if you do those things, you gain authority in the space, and toxicity dissolves around you. That's what I would say to that.
Lovely. Thank you for that. Now, we've got another question here, Danushni. Danu, thank you for tuning in again. And Danu asked a very good question. I like this question. What type of person do you think should be an entrepreneur? KJ, you've started many businesses and you've got a list of things. And one of the things I wanted to highlight was you're the co-chair of the Keynote Women Speakers Directory. This is one thing, but one thing I like about
Did we lose Nordin?
Yeah.
Technical difficulty.
Danu's question was
back.
So could I get your ideas around that, KJ?
Yes, thank you, Nordin. Danushni, what sort of person should be an entrepreneur? Every person should be an entrepreneur. Own your career. Find a passion, find a purpose that makes you wake up in the morning excited about what you do. Building on Anjali's point, make your days count. Fill your days up with things that excite you, that build your leadership legacy, that give you independence, power, financial independence, right? This is all important. You can do this either by hanging up your own shingle and being an entrepreneur, or by working within your company with passion and purpose and being an intrapreneur. So whether it is outside with your own shop or inside an organization, taking charge of your career decisions and driving your career forward, being your own strongest advocate is what entrepreneurship is all about. And it will yield very rich dividends. Not enough people do this. It's absolutely doable, very much within your power. Big change with COVID has been that the kind of networking women typically do. Now, a lot of this is going to be broad brush stereotypes and generalizations. You specifically may be different, but in general, women tend to start with social niceties. Hey, Maylin, how are you doing? How has life been? Do you have some time? Maylin, I was wondering, could we have a cup of coffee someday soon? And finally, Maylin, how are your children? How's your husband? How's your career? Oh, by the way, I noticed that you have a job in your organization. Would it be possible for you to tell me a little bit about it? How long did it take me? It took me 5 minutes of building up my confidence and courage to ask Maylin this. Meantime, thanks to COVID, we're all super, super busy, running really fast, and we don't have spontaneous conversations in the workplace. So, Dhanushni, if your networking conversations have been impacted by this social isolation, where we're all stuck at home, one thing you can definitely do is get more upfront and in your face. Talk to people, acknowledge they're busy, and quickly say, I'd love to pick your brain 5 minutes because I have something important I care about. I'd love your advice. Be upfront, bring those pockets of time. Good part about COVID, bad part was we lost out on opportunities to spontaneously network, right? Good part, everybody's stuck at home. So you want to pick up the phone and call Marshall Goldsmith. You want to set up a Zoom appointment with Tony Robinson. You can do this. People are stuck at home. They're available. They're phenomenal opportunities to network anywhere in the world. Look at us today. Nordin is in Malaysia. We're all stuck in Singapore. Where are you dialing from? COVID has made this possible, right? Digital transformation. So Dhanushni, build your networks, be bold, whether you're inside your company or outside, absolutely take charge and be your best advocate. Entrepreneurship, intrapreneurship, both are good for everybody. Back to you, Nordin.
Excellent, thank you. And I think Danu is definitely inspired. I'm sure she's going to do a lot of good work this afternoon for her team. Now, Sheila, you've been quiet for a few minutes, so I also want to get another question from Adam. Thank you, Adam, for these good questions. And talks about the youth and societal change. What have you seen, especially in the last few months? And really, from one thing I've seen is a lot of youth are not at school or not able to do this and not able to do that. What are they able to do, and what do you see as that change for them? And then, of course, young women. What is the reality for them now?
Well, that's actually a bit funny because I have been talking to a few friends who have kids right now, and what I've asked them was, is it difficult for them now to interact with their peers? And they were saying no, because they've gone online. So those people who've never really been interested in going online, now they're interacting with them, and they're actually discovering networks outside of their country. So I don't know whether you've ever played Fortnite or those sort of things. So you now have these games that, because I don't play games, but apparently there are these multi-member games or something like that, where they meet people from different places, and that's where they interact. A lot of times it's mostly games, but then you start looking at how do they talk to them? How do they even come up with a way to share what they're doing? So in a way right now, you can see this shift where I would say, and the unfortunate part is they're no longer going outside and being in the environment, but the good part of it is that they're more in tune with what's happening online. Now, I've been reading some articles from the Straits Times, and what they're saying is that there has actually been an increase in the number of students who are now pursuing STEM. It's still in the 30% range. It's still very low, and lower still for women. But what is good is that that has increased from 2017. I believe it was only around 20%, and now around 2019, 2020, it's gone to around 30 to 40%. But it's still a bit low, considering that if you also look at what was the latest number? In Infocom, out of the 200,000 workers, they only have about 30% of them are women. So there is this progress happening right now where you can see that because the pandemic has forced the youth of today to interact differently than what we have done in the past, you'll probably see more of a shift on what do they spend time on. Of course, people will probably say, oh yeah, they're on TikTok, they're on Instagram, they're on YouTube. But I look at it in a way for them as a way to experiment on how to reach their people. So I see a lot of influencers, I would say YouTube influencers, who are going along that path. And it does take a lot of work to come up with content. But at the same time, it's also a way for them to start learning about programming. So we now have girls in data, for example. We have parents saying, my child is interested to learn data. Is there any way for her to learn this, even though she is 13, 14, 15 years old? So for me, that is a great chance for now to really look into the kids and say, what is it that we can teach them right now while we're still on lockdown? And a lot of that would probably be programming. A lot of that would probably in mathematics, something that they can learn on their own, and then put that or have that alongside what they're currently doing right now, which is part of the socializing, which goes into Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube. So in order to answer Adam, what advice would I give them to make the change for a better tomorrow? I would advise them to start using this opportunity this time to interact, to reach out to as many people as they can out there. You now have the internet, you can reach out to as many people. Talk to mentors like Anjali, like Maylene and KG has said. There are people out there who are willing to share their knowledge. And one way to do that is to either be part of a volunteer organization or be part of organizations that will really help them develop whatever skills or knowledge that they would like to pursue. Nordin?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sheila. Time is flying by. We've already gone past 45 minutes, but no issues. Hi, Marisa from Jakarta. Thank you for joining us. I want to ask one question for myself, but also if you could help me answer the question, once we found the allies, how can we build on that mentor-mentee relationship? So I just want everyone to kind of give me in a closing kind of way. I have one question, and it's really about what is it that women can do that men can't? You know, or is there something that really we should look at how to leverage off this strength that women have? And our organizations, in a sense, missing the boat because they don't recognize that strength. So who wants to go first? Maylene, you look like you're taking notes and diligently, so I'll let you go first.
Okay, sure. I think my closing comment, and also maybe directly to how can you make most out of your mentor-mentee relationship. Over the course of the years, you know, being a human being and being female, I guess the one thing that is really, truly important is be yourself, be authentic. You can hear a lot of different ways of which myself, you know, Anjali and KG and all these tips and I guess advice that we can give you on what you can do to enhance your personal career, your personal self, your personal life. But at the end of the day, I still find that knowing yourself and truly understanding what your capabilities are and enhancing on it is really important. And you know, I think that the thing for me as well is I find that women are probably the worst enemies to each other. I think if we're kinder to each other, women to women, and not be as critical as each other, I think this is where we can help ourselves develop and not put if I can use the word blame, on our male species counterpart, because it starts with us first. Be kind to each other, right? Let's not be too harsh to criticize each other. And women are our worst critic. I know people say that, we are our own worst critics, but outside of ourselves, I sometimes find that women to women, we are our worst critics to each other. And so, to make most of your mentor-mentee relation, be authentic, grow that, you don't want to just have a relationship because you want to get something out of it. Be yourself. Again, when I first started in this conversation, I said, be a person. Male, female, red, green, or blue. That's me. Hope that helps everyone.
Lovely, thank you very much, Mei-Lin. Now, Anjali, what do you see as that way forward?
Yeah, okay, so very quickly, let's answer this question by a LinkedIn user. Once you found our allies, how can early career women make the most out of their mentor-mentee relationships? Mentor-mentee relationship are overrated, everybody. What we all have to learn to do is to look for heroes. What is the difference between heroes and mentors? Heroes live their life in a public space. For example, what did Indira Nooyi do? What did Sheryl Sandberg do? What did Jacinda Ardern do? What did these women do? These women live their lives in public. We have to learn to really get in the habit of learning from them. I have learned so many things from these women. I'll give you an example so that it doesn't come across like one statement I'm throwing it. Many years ago, I heard an interview by Indira Nooyi in which she said, how did she do it? How did she manage to have children, be married, continue to stay married, her marriage didn't break, and still have a very successful career? I was always intrigued because most of the women I saw in that position were not in that situation. And then I read about something that she called Asian parenting model as to how she managed. She had an Excel sheet of family members from India who used to fly for 3 months period. She used to pay for everything, who used to come and supervise her home as she worked in these big roles. So there are lots and lots of tricks that, practical advice that these heroes can give us. You just have to be curious to really figuring it out. Every time I find myself in a situation, I always ask myself this abbreviation, WWMHD, which is what would my hero do? And I look for answers from these women who are truly heroes. Now, let's come to the allies. Allies are not essentially mentors. You don't really have to ask for allies' time. Allies is like somebody saying, okay, I'm here for you. Naturally, the male network is much stronger in organizations. So if they can, in a meeting, talk good about you in your absence, it helps spread your story. So allies are not specified mentors. Now, if you do get a mentor, how do you get the best out of the mentors? The biggest issue that mentors have is the time issue. Because if you keep saying, every 1 week, meet me twice and give me advice, no. Just keep your working with your mentor in a way that you actually don't get them sucked up in this time commitment. Time is our only non-renewable resource. Everybody is time poor. Develop a relationship with your mentor like the people who I have mentored is, when I'm in fix, I'll buzz you and we'll talk. Otherwise, I'm just going to observe you and learn from you. If you show that confidence, you can get the best out of your mentor. Have an agreement. When I'm in a fix, I'll buzz you. Otherwise, I will treat you like my hero and I will learn how you live your life. That's the first part of the question. The next question that Nordin asked about, what is it that men can't do that women can? Everyone, our empathy levels as women are just so much higher. And during COVID, there was a reason why women-led countries did so well. Now, even amongst leaders, we saw that the Asian leaders did much better than non-Asian leaders. And the reason for that was the empathy levels. So do not discount your high empathy levels. Use them as a tool to progress yourself, progress the organizations, progress the societies and countries and the future generations. Your empathy levels are your gift. We are naturally given so many life experiences through our anatomy and through our biology that we have much better empathy levels. Your empathy is your gift, and you can learn to use them. Jacinda Ardern is our role model when it comes to empathy and what she has been able to do during COVID. The only woman who had fight the pandemic with a baby in her arms, and put rest of the world to shame. That's all I would say. Thank you.
Thank you, Anjali. Yes, she's definitely a great example of fighting fires. Now, KG, what are your closing ideas, and where are you seeing this going?
I'd like to offer 2 bits of advice, separate buckets. For those who identify as male, I'd like for you to think about the fact that privilege is often transparent. If I am lucky and I have an advantage, I will not notice it. I will think I'm naturally awesome. That's why I'm successful. I won't stop to think what are the factors that help me. Chances are very high if you are an able bodied male who comes from an educated background and has most support networks that people typically do in cities, you have advantages that you don't recognize. And it's very, very good if you're able to use some of these advantages to be an ally, advocate, mentor, helper, sponsor, cheerleader for someone who's less advantaged. Second point, there is something called intersectionality. We live in Asia. As recently as a couple months back, a former Prime Minister of Japan, Yoshiro Mori, gave a public announcement. Let me know in the chat if you've heard of this story. He gave a public announcement saying, ladies, you want to be part of top boards in organizations, you may do so, but please don't talk as much. Women talk too much and are too emotional. There was a 22-year-old woman, young student, Momoko Nojo, let's say her name as well, who actually started an online viral campaign saying, women, hashtag don't be silent. And she got 150,000 signatures in 2 weeks, which resulted in Mori resigning. And for the first time in Japan, a female cabinet minister holding that role. So first of all, recognize that there are many different ways in which males can actually undermine, discredit, talk down to women without realizing, even if they think they're good people. And the third one I'd like for you to think about is do a self-audit. Look at your team, look at your advisors, look at the top 5 people you trust. If these are all male, chances are you need diversity in your friend circle, in the kind of books you read, the kind of movies you watch, the kind of teams you're putting together. If you spot someone who's silent, whose ideas are stolen, who's spoken over, who's feeling timid, be an ally, be an advocate for that person. That's how you can take your power and use it for good. And for those who identify as female, I want you to acknowledge that today you saw so much diversity just on this panel. You have Mei Lin, who believes in independence and fiercely looks at human beings first and not color, sex, creed, gender, right? And then you have others who've spoken of their own experiences. As a woman, be aware, what is your baggage that you come with? What are the things that are holding you back in your head? And then turn the lens around to other women. What are their problems? Maybe another woman in your team, in your network, is different from you, but that doesn't make her experience any less important. If you feel bold and another woman is timid, she's not wrong. If you feel secure and another woman is insecure and therefore aggressively pushes you back, her experience is not less than yours. They're all stories of the same experience of being female in the world. So be aware of the fact that it's a tough journey. What is holding you back? Be aware of that. Fight for yourself, fight for others. And most importantly, always challenge what's going on. Why should a leader only be charismatic, outspoken? Can a leader be quiet? Can a leader be emotional, like Jacinda Ardern, as Anjali just put out? So be a critical thinker and question things. Thank you, Nordin. Back to you.
Thank you, KJ. Now, Sheila, you got the last word, so it's over to you.
Thank you, Nordin. And I'll try to sort of wrap up my thoughts as well. I've had a fantastic experience of meeting so many people, men and women, wherever I've lived. And this is one way that I could give as an advice to everybody. Not only finding your ally, but find a community that you feel safe in, but at the same time will be able to challenge you to do more than what you think you're capable of. If, for example, you find a male ally, be prepared to be challenged, because we have our different opinions and different ideas. If you're specifically looking at how to progress your career and you want to know the steps on how to go up the ladder, be prepared to meet as many people as possible, but also to be challenged with the ideas that they have, because now you have people with experiences, or you have people who come from different countries and culture, and you will be bombarded by all of this advice and tips and that you're going to get from them. But I will take a leaf out of Mei Lin's words, a book, and that is, you need to also be true to your core and to your values. If you lose yourself by absorbing everything that people tell you, and you lose that part of yourself, then eventually you'll also lose your way. One example that I can give, for example, is a tech company where they would have gotten this deal, but one thing that they were being asked was to do something that for them undermines their belief. And that is looking at, for example, or providing information about dissidents or possible dissidents in certain countries. Now, for most companies, they would have just said, yeah, it's a great business for us. But if in your core you don't believe in that, you will be comfortable to say, no, I won't be able to do that. And those are the things that you will encounter. So one way that I would tell people is that there are so many organizations and associations out there. If you are looking for people who will be able to mentor you or to guide you, be part of that organization, and not just be a member, but actively say, this is what I can do. How can I help you? Because in doing that, then you're giving back and you're learning in the process. Once you do that, then you will see that eventually you will become a mentor yourself. You will have people then coming to you and say, how did you do this? What have you learned? So be open to challenges, but be proactive in what you do, and try to meet as many people wherever you are. Thank you, Nordin.
Thank you very much, Sheila. And I want to take this opportunity to thank all our panelists today. Anjali, Sharma, I've got to get everyone's name right. This is the tricky part for me because I'm dyslexic. Kaumudi Goda, thank you very much. Sheila Berman, and of course, Wong, thank you very much for your time today. I learned a lot. I think our guests learned a lot, and we really appreciate your time and sharing your thoughts and ideas on this special edition of Working Lunch with Nordin, the International Women's Day special edition. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks. Happy International Women's Day.
Thanks.